Okay, good morning, dear students. Good morning to each one of you. Okay, so good morning, dear students. Today we are going to study a new poem, right? So before we go on to study the new poem, uh, I'll give you some introduction about what the poem is all about. So can anyone text me very quickly if I'm audible clearly to you? Please do text me quite quickly if I'm audible to you clearly, so that I can start with my lesson straight away. Okay, thank you, Shubham. Thank you, Sadvika. Okay, so see here, dear students, elementary school classroom. It is written by Stephen Spander. Okay, it is written by Stephen Spander. So he was a very intellectual person. Let's find out something about him. Stephen Spander was an English poet and essayist. Post World War, Europe finds expression in Spander's verse and prose. Post World War, okay, these his poetry or his works find expression in or his poems and his works are related to post World War, okay, post Second World War in particular, okay. You all of you know that Second World War started in 1939. So his poetry, his prose, everything focuses on the after effect of the World War, right? Famous books include Poem of Dedication, Age of Being, The Creative Element, etc. The poem highlights on themes of social injustice and class equalities. So what does the poem highlight? The poem highlights on themes of social injustice and class inequalities. That is what most of his poems highlight, okay, because as you know that the work of a writer, work of a poet, or work of a dramatist or a novelist is to sensitize the readers, to create awareness in the society with their works. Therefore they normally focus on the contemporary issues of the society, and Stephen Spander also focuses on the contemporary issues of the society. And at that time the contemporary issue was social injustice and class inequalities. So let's now go to the theme straight away. The poem casts doubt about the purpose of education to the slum children, right? So this particular poem is about the education of the slum children, right? So the poem casts doubt about the purpose of education to the slum children. There is a school for the slum children, but it is the education is not taking place as is required actually. That is why the poet is just asking question, or he is expressing his doubt about why is why are slum schools open when there is no infrastructure, when there is no teaching aid, when there is no teacher available. Then what is the purpose of opening slum school? That is what the poet casts a doubt on this in this lesson, in this poem. It contains Spander's views about slum schools and the purpose behind establishing such schools. The poet thinks that lives of slum children will remain miserable unless they are educated and shifted elsewhere. The poet thinks that lives of slum children will remain miserable unless they are they are educated and shifted elsewhere, right? The poem is a fine combination of hope and despair for the humanity, unlike the dark vision of T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, right? So here it's a combination of hope and despair for the humanity, because the slum people are totally neglected by the government, and the government is totally indifferent towards the education of the slum children. Therefore it's a despair for the humanity. Okay, and we'll find out as we go through the poem. The poem draws out a real picture of slum children in a school after post-World War period, right? Now let's begin with stanza 1 part 1, right? Stanza 1 part 1. Okay, so just a minute, I'm going to start. Yeah, okay, little bit. Yeah, okay. So dear students, as you can see here, you can keep your mobile phone in landscape mode, so that you are able to see the text properly, right? Okay, so as you can see, stanza 1 part 1, let us go through. Far from gusty waves, these children's faces like rootless weeds, the hair torn round their pallor, the tall girl with her weighed down head, the paper swimming boy with rat's eyes, right? So what is the meaning of these 4 lines? Let's find out. Far from gusty waves. Gusty waves here refers to strong waves. Slum children are away from beautiful sights of nature. Okay, so the poet says that here in the first line, the poet says that the slum children are away from the natural setting. The slum children are away from the lap of nature, from the view of nature, which also has a very good contribution towards the physical and mental growth of a child. If a child grows up in the lap of nature, if a child grows up in the company of beautiful sights and sounds of nature, the boy has physical as well as intellectual development, right? But these slum children has no natural view where they live. That is why the writer, the poet says, far from gusty waves. Okay, for gusty waves here refers to, gusty wave is a symbol for the sea, you can say sea, strong waves. Okay, so it's a symbol for nature. So children are away from gusty waves. These children faces like rootless weeds. Now children's faces are compared to rootless weeds. You know that weeds means unwanted plants. Okay, weeds means unwanted plants. Here the children's hair is compared to the unwanted plants. Like weeds have no value, like weeds are not useful for human beings. Similarly, the children's hair also are as disorderly, as useless as the rootless weeds. Their hair torn around their pallor. Pallor means their pale face. Okay, the hair torn round because their hair is not combed properly, the hair is not shampooed properly, the hair is not arranged properly, right? So therefore the poet goes on to compare the hair of these children with the rootless weeds. As weeds are very useless for the children, likewise the hair of these slum children are also very much disorderly. They look clumsy, they look unkempt, means they look untidy, they are not combed properly. Okay, and the hair on their head is they have a dangling sort of hair, okay, which is covering their face in a very disorderly manner. So they look absolutely out of the place actually, okay. They look very clumsy, they look very ugly, as their hair is not properly combed, hair is not kept in orderly manner, and the long hair is covering their face also, okay. So the hair from their head is dangling around their face, and it has covered their face. So the hair torn around their pallor. The tall girl, now there is a girl in the class, it's a classroom. Now the classroom scenario has been referred to, classroom setting has been referred to. There is a tall girl with her weighed down head. Weighed down head means what, you know, dear students? Weighed down means here, as you can see, heavy head due to malnutrition, right? It means see, you'll find several physical abnormalities of these slum children which the poet has mentioned. So what are the reasons for such physical abnormalities, such physical deformities? See, all of you must be knowing, dear students, that due to malnutrition, okay, due to not proper intake of food, due to not proper intake of nutrition which is required for the physical growth of a child, what happens? Children become victim of malnutrition. This is exactly what has happened with the children of slum here in this poem, okay. Now in the third line, the setting of the poem has shifted to the classroom there, and there is a reference of a tall girl in the classroom who has also physical deformity in the form of a very heavy head, very heavy and fat head. The poet says that the girl has such a weight on her head that it seems that she is the victim of malnutrition. Therefore he says the tall girl with her weighed down head, right? He has mentioned the name of mentioned about a tall girl who is the victim of malnutrition. He also mentions, or he also goes on to mention another a boy who is very thin as paper, and he has also some physical deformity because his eyes appear to be as hollow as those of rats. Therefore, not only is the tall girl who is the victim of malnutrition, but also a very thin boy in the class who is also the victim of malnutrition, which is manifested, or which is presented, or which is expressed in the form of his eyes, because his eyes are as hollow as those of rats. So both the tall girl in the classroom as well as the fat boy in the classroom, both are the victims of malnutrition, right? So the poet has made reference of the slum children in a slum classroom, but the poet is drawing our attention to the fact that what will these children learn in the classroom when they are not physically fit enough to carry on with their studies in the classroom, right? So now, dear students, let's go through the paraphrase of these 4 lines. Paraphrase of these 4 lines. You see here, the poet goes on to say that so I'm coming here, dear students, so I've got to keep it 110 actually, otherwise it's difficult, you will not be able to see the text, right? So please stay connected. I think now you shall be able to see. Text is not coming. Transition. Okay. So, dear students, as you can see here, the poet here describes the miserable condition of the children sitting in a classroom in a slum, school from gusty wave means children are away from the beautiful sights of nature, which is indicated by their appearance, right? So in the very beginning of the poem, the poet mentions about the fact that the slum children are growing up away from the sights and sounds of nature, as nature is very much responsible for the physical as well as intellectual growth of a child. But when it comes to the slum children, they are away from the sights and sounds of nature. Therefore it is not good for the physical and intellectual growth of the children. This is what he begins the poem with, right? Then he goes on to compare the hair of the children with unwanted weeds, as weeds are very useless, as weeds are not useful for us. Likewise, the hair on the head of the children are very, very useless, in the sense that they appear to be very much disorderly, without any comb, and then disorderly manner they are dangling on the face of the slum children. By this reference, by the mention of dangling hair on their head and comparing their dangling hair with unwanted weeds, the poet means to say that the slum children are very, very untidy. The slum children are very, very untidy and unhygienic by nature. Then the poet straightway goes on to the classroom of the slum, where he makes reference of two children in the classroom. One is a tall girl with a very wetty head, right? She is the victim of malnutrition. And then he goes on to make reference of another thin boy who has protruding eyes, okay, who has hollow eyes and protruding eyes like those of rats. So by the reference of the dangling hair of the slum children, by the reference of a girl in the classroom, a thin boy in the classroom, the poet means to say that as the children are away from the sights and sounds of nature, these children are not physically and mentally healthy, number one. Number two, they have become miserably victim of malnutrition, as a result of which they have some physical deformities which are visible from their physical appearance. Now let me read out. Their hair, which look untidy and fall on their pale face, is compared to rootless weeds here. As weeds are unwanted in a garden, similarly the hair on their head appear to be unproductive as well, right? Unproductive as well. So this part I've already explained you properly. Now let's move on to the next part. A tall girl in the classroom with her heavy head looks sad. Her heavy head represents her abnormal growth due to malnutrition. One boy sitting in the class is as thin as paper. He has hollowness like those of a rat. He too is the victim of undernourishment due to glaring poverty. Now let's move on to stanza 1, part 2. Part 2 of stanza 1. Right? Okay. The stunted unlucky hair of twisted bones. Stunted unlucky hair means undernourished unlucky successor. Okay. Because their previous generation was also the victim of malnutrition. Therefore, the poet is making a reference of yet another boy in the classroom who has also inherited some hereditary disease from his father. To mention about this fact, he goes on to say that the stunted unlucky hair, he is referred to, that boy is referred to as unlucky, unfortunate. Hair means successor. Okay, he is an unfortunate successor of his father who is suffering from twisted bones. means he has a deformed body. Another boy in the classroom has deformed body. Twisted bones means he has deformed body, and he is very much unlucky successor of his father. And the poet goes on to say that the boy is reciting in the classroom, and when he is reciting, he is not able to stand properly. He is twisted. Okay, he is standing in a stooping manner. From there it is obvious that he has inherited the disease of twisted bones from his father, right? So this is the meaning of these two lines. The stunted unlucky hair of twisted bones, reciting a father's gnarled disease. Gnarled disease here refers to physical deformity. Okay, and then the poet goes on to describe about this boy further. He says his lesson from his desk. He is reading out his lesson from his desk. He is reciting something on from the desk, but he is not able to stand properly. He is standing in a stooping manner, stooping gesture. And then another boy, he is mentioning, the poet is mentioning about another boy here at back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young. At back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young. His eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game in tree room other than this. Now the poet goes on to mention about another boy in the classroom who sits at the back of the class, of course, but he is very promising. He is unnoted. He is not noticed by teachers, but he is very sweet, very young, and his eyes live in a dream, means he is very promising in nature. In the classroom, among all the malnourished, undernourished children, there is a boy who sits at the back, who is usually unnoticed by teacher, but at the same time he is very sweet and he is very young, and he is very, very promising by nature, right? He is there physically in the classroom, but mentally he is not in the classroom. See, his eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game, okay, in tree room other than this. This boy's attention is focused not in the classroom but in the lap of nature, where the squirrel plays in a tree, right? There the boy's mind is already focused. The boy is physically present in this promising boy is physically present in the classroom, but mentally he is there with the squirrel, okay, in the lap of nature, near the tree where the squirrel plays, right? So this boy indirectly has been compared to a squirrel, as the squirrel is very agile and very, very active. Likewise, this boy is also very active, even though he is not noticed in the classroom, even though he is not so much recognized by the teacher. He sits at the back of the class. In spite of that, he is very much sweet and young, and he is very promising in nature, and he is physically present. In spite of although he is physically present in the classroom, he is mentally somewhere else in the lap of nature with squirrel near the tree where the squirrel plays the game, right? Now tree room, you see the explanation of tree room. The boy thinks of squirrel's game into a hollow of a tree rather than this cramped classroom. Okay, tree room means the hollow of the tree where the squirrel plays his game. So the boy thinks of squirrel's game into the hollow of a tree rather than being focused in the classroom, in this cramped classroom where there is no interest for the boy, because there is nothing interesting in the classroom. Therefore the boy's mind is not in the classroom but focused in the lap of nature, in a tree, in the hollow of a tree where squirrel plays his game. So dear students, let's go through the paraphrase now. The poet says that there is a boy who is unlucky as he inherited a disease from his father, due to which he has a deformed body, right? So the poet says that there is a boy who is unlucky as he inherited a disease from his father, due to which he has a deformed body, right? I've explained you this part. Next, this disabled boy is reciting his lesson from his desk in the classroom. He too is the victim of poor nourishment. Okay, he is the victim of poor nourishment, because he has a stooping gait, he has a stooping gesture, his back is bent. So the poet says that he has inherited this gnarled disease from his father. Next, but on the other hand, there is some ray of hope in the classroom, because at the back of the classroom and the back of the dark classroom, there is a boy who is unnoticed by teacher, but who is very sweet and young, and who has promising eyes, right? In spite of being physically present, his mind is there in the lap of nature, in the tree, hollow of a tree where squirrel plays his game, right? On the back of the dark class, a bright and young boy was sitting. He is sitting there unnoticed and dreaming of squirrels playing in a tree. He appeared to be very promising. Okay, next, the dull and uninteresting ambience in the classroom has failed to arrest his attention, because nothing is going in the classroom interesting is going in the classroom. Therefore, the boy is mentally absent from the classroom, right? Okay. Okay, now I shall teach you another stanza, and then I shall wind up, dear students, right? Another stanza I'll teach you. Okay, then you see, dear students, here stanza 1 part 2. Next is stanza 2 part 1. Till stanza 2 part 1 I'll explain you today. On sour cream walls, donations Shakespeare's had, cloudless at dawn, civilized dome, riding all cities, belled, flowery Tyrolese valley. So what do this imagery, or what do these images refer to? Let me explain you first. Here, the walls of the classroom are all decorated by the donations given by all the philanthropists, right? You can say that these donations are given as teaching aids, you can say, teaching aids, okay? So that walls of the classroom are all adorned with, all decorated with donations given by the philanthropists, okay? Given by different, you can say, social workers or philanthropists, okay? But these decorations on the world are absolutely irrelevant for the slum children, because I shall explain the reason why. Just hang on. Sour cream walls, the color of the walls are cream, but they become sour. Why? Because they are not painted properly. They have become very faded. That is why faded cream walls, dirty faded cream walls. So the color of the classroom is dark, faded cream wall, because the paint has gone off, okay? Next, Shakespeare had refers to donated bust of William Shakespeare. Bust means, you can say, is the face, okay? Bust means the face of somebody, okay, made by stone, okay, made of stone. So Shakespeare head is also there in the classroom. And then you can see here, cloudless at dawn, civilized dome, pictures of civilization, pictures of rich civilization, okay, in a very bright and clear sky, has also been hung on the classroom, right? Has also been hung on the classroom. And then Tyrolese Valley is a kind of a picturesque valley, okay? It's an Austrian Alpine province, the picture of which is also given in the classroom. So I'll explain you why on these sour cream walls, these donations of Shakespeare's had, picture of a civilized dome, or the picture of a Tyrolese valley appear to be irrelevant in the classroom. Why are these donations, why are these teaching aids in the classroom likely to be useless? Why are they irrelevant for the needs of the children? Let me explain you, okay? But before that, let us go through the paraphrase. By means of paraphrase, I shall explain you the meaning. The walls of the classroom are pale and dirty. On these walls, a host of donated teaching aids have been put up. These objects on the wall represent the world of the rich and prosperous. One of them is the picture of William Shakespeare. The other picture shows early morning sky without any tinge of cloud in it. The picture of high-rise domes of modern civilization represent the quality of life in those cities. There is also a picture of the beautiful Tyrolese Valley, a region in the Austrian Alpine province adorned with flowers. But why are these pictures on the classroom irrelevant for the slum children? Because these colorful pictures on the walls have no relevance in the lives of these poor children. Right? These colorful pictures which are there on the classroom, these which are pasted on the walls of the dull classroom, on the dull classroom on the dull walls of the classroom are irrelevant. Why? Because these pictures have no relevance in the lives of these poor slum children. These poor slum children can never visit such beautiful places, the pictures of which are hung on the classroom, nor can they have access to the books of William Shakespeare, because William Shakespeare, to study William Shakespeare, you need to be intellectually rich. Without having intellectual maturity, you cannot read the books of William Shakespeare. Therefore, this picture of this bust of William Shakespeare, as well as the pictures on the walls, are all irrelevant for the needs of slum children, because the slum children are poor, very very poor. They cannot have access to higher education to understand William Shakespeare, number one, and number two, they will not be able to ever make a trip on these beautiful places, the pictures of which are hung on the wall. Therefore, these pictures are very very irrelevant to the needs of the young slum children. The world depicted on these walls is not the world of the children, right? Their world does not contain huge domes or advanced civilization or the scenic beauty as presented in the pictures on the wall of the classroom. Therefore, dear students, these pictures, these donations, these teaching aids which are pasted on the dull sour cream walls of the classroom are all irrelevant to the needs of the young children, right? So dear students, let's wind up today here. We shall start from the second part here. We shall start from open-handed map in our next class, that is tomorrow at the same time, right? So before we disperse, before I wind up my lesson, can you please just write yes, so that I understand that you have been listening to me all throughout, and I shall send you the attendance link today in the Google Classroom then I'll inform you on WhatsApp group for the attendance when I upload the attendance link on Google Classroom. So dear students, today you will give your attendance on Google Classroom. I shall upload it within half an hour, and then I shall let you know on WhatsApp. Please write yes. Thank you Pravash, thank you Shubham, Vinit, Ashutosh, Prakhar, Utkarsh, Balchandra, Suhani, Salender, Mansi, Sravani, Arya Singh, Sadvika, Mayur, Buneshwar, Vagasri, Gaurav, Mahek, Nidhi, Gauri, Arya Divedi, Sahiba, Ria Akre. Very good. Thank you so very much for staying with me till the end. And Anam, thank you so much. And I shall upload the attendance link on the Google Classroom and inform you through your group WhatsApp. Then you immediately go there and give your attendance. Okay, bye bye, take care, and we shall meet tomorrow. Thank you Kailani, please be regular in the classroom Kailani. Okay, thank you so much.